So today we continue the Sermon on the Mount from the Gospel of Luke. Very difficult teachings. So 3 things I want to focus on today. Love your enemies, stop judging, and be generous. So we begin by probably the hardest teaching in Scripture, love your enemies. So Jesus didn't just say love them, but he used the word agape. Well, it's translated into Greek, agape, which is the highest form of love. It's a type of sacrificial love for another. And this was a brand new teaching. You know, we were told to love God and love your neighbor in the Old Testament. But now Jesus is saying, do that, and now love your enemies. And you may say, well, how is this possible? So if you think about it, love is not based on emotions or feelings. Love is an act of the will. So Jesus says, I want you to love your enemies in 3 tangible ways: with your actions, with your words, and with your prayers. So he says the first one, actions. Do good to those who hate you. The second one, with your words, bless those who curse you. And finally, with prayer, pray for those who mistreat you. So even if you don't want to be in the presence of this person, or maybe even they've died already, you can still pray for them. And I once heard someone say, if you can pray for your enemies and actually desire good, that means you're on the path towards forgiveness. So these are acts of the will, and they are supernatural graces from God. Naturally, what do we want? An eye for an eye. You've hurt me, I want to hurt you. But Jesus is showing compassion and mercy toward those who have hurt us. And if you think about it, not only does he talk about it, but he does it for us. We are all sinners. We all hurt the Lord in many of the ways that we act. And in Romans it says, even though we were sinners, he died for us on the cross. So Jesus, today we hear people say, well, I think I'll get to heaven. You know, I'm a good person. I haven't killed anybody. That's a really low bar, right? But if you think about that, anybody can love those who love them. These are natural virtues. Jesus says even sinners do that. He says, you want to lend money to those who will pay you back. He says even sinners do that. These are natural virtues. But he says the supernatural virtue is to love your enemy, to give to those who can't pay you back. And so he says, our reward will be great in heaven when we love our enemies, when we do good to them, and when we lend expecting nothing in return. Difficult teaching, but it's a grace that we have to ask God for to do. The second one is stop judging, another very difficult thing to do. He says, stop judging and you will not be judged. Stop condemning and you will not be condemned. Now, some people use this as a form of relativism. You hear people say, who are you to judge me? You know, I'm okay, you're okay. It says in Scripture here, don't judge anyone. But what is Jesus really meaning here? I think it's clear when you look in the context. We can differentiate people and actions, right? According to Scripture, there are objectively sinful actions, there are objectively good actions. But we cannot judge the person. You know, they say, love the sinner, hate the sin. I think that's really important for us to keep in mind that we don't know. Maybe somebody has done an objectively evil thing, but maybe they've gone to confession and maybe they're good with the Lord. And he's saying, who are you to judge or to condemn? Only God does that. But we can objectively say that certain things are right and wrong based on what God has said to us. And so in social media, this is really important because it's easy when you're not face-to-face with someone to judge them, to condemn them. But it's a very dangerous place spiritually because Jesus is saying, I want you to be merciful, loving, compassionate, and kind in the way that I am to you. And so always keep in mind, on your deathbed, how do you want God to treat you? I'm sure we all want mercy, compassion, love, forgiveness. And he says, just like you want that from me, I want you to give that generously to others. And so that brings me to the third point is be generous. So how does God measure? He says, "Give, and gifts will be given to you. A good measure, packed together, shaken down, and overflowing will be poured into your lap." I never understood this image, so I did some research this week, and I found that the Greek word metron is like a measuring bowl. So you go to the market, and if you want to buy grain, you'd say, okay, I need 2 shekels worth of grain. They would put like a towel on your lap. You'd sit down. They put a bowl in your lap. They put grain in there, and if you wanted a generous portion, they would push it down. They would fill it again. They'd shake it, and anything that fell over the end went into the towel, and you got what was ever in the bowl and in the towel. It's like this overabundant measuring. And Jesus says, that's how I am with you, and I want you to be that way with others, especially in the area of love, mercy, and forgiveness. So this week we've been asked by the diocese to show Bishop Hicks's 4-minute video on the Catholic Ministries Capital Annual Appeal, and then I'll talk a couple minutes afterwards. So Aaron, if you could start that.
Hello, Bishop Hicks here, and I'm reaching out today to humbly invite you to participate in this year's upcoming Catholic Ministries Annual Appeal. As Catholics, we know how important it is to both practice our faith and live our faith, not only during the holiest of liturgical seasons, but each day in ways like Jesus did. The Catholic Ministries Annual Appeal, or the CMAA for short, provides us with an abundance of opportunity to follow Christ's example by serving others. The theme for the 2025 appeal is Open Your Heart to God's Goodness. By opening our hearts to God's goodness, we embrace all the magnificence God has created. And one powerful and meaningful way to do so this year is by helping our brothers and sisters in need through your support of the CMAA. The CMAA is the lifeline behind these ministries that our Catholic Church is rooted in. Ministries that rely on your generosity to stay strong in our service to others throughout the Diocese of Joliet. All the ministries the CMAA focuses on are vital. Catechesis and evangelization is one such ministry. Its core mission is to guide and grow our youth, young adults, and those with disabilities in their Catholic faith. And that's just a small example of one ministry your gift supports. The CMAA proudly supports Catholic Charities, founded in 1917 to meet human need through the mission of charity. Today, in our diocese, we serve over 44,000 less fortunate through programs that house homeless, feed the hungry, provide support for the elderly, help mothers in need, and protect the most innocent and vulnerable among us. The future of the Catholic Church rests on the shoulders of one of the most essential ministries under the CMAA umbrella, that is, vocations. Those who are called by God to the priesthood and religious life require extensive education and formation to prepare them in their roles as spiritual shepherds. Your contribution makes this possible. By participating in the Catholic Ministries Annual Appeal, you truly are opening your heart to God's goodness. Together, we can provide so much for so many who rely on the services that your kindness and generosity continue to make possible year after year. I ask that you prayerfully consider making a gift today. If you are in a financial position to do so, please give. And give thought also to increasing your gift or pledge from last year. Every offering received is a blessing to those who benefit, and it is greatly appreciated. I realize that not everyone is able to contribute to this year's CMAA. And to those of you who are unable, please know that you are in my thoughts and prayers. As I mentioned, the CMAA provides an abundance of opportunity to open your heart to God's goodness. I want to thank you personally for both your financial generosity and generosity of spirit that you demonstrate daily by donating your time and talents to the Catholic ministries in your own parishes and outreach programs throughout the Diocese of Joliet. You are the heart and soul that keeps our faith communities loving, growing, and vibrant. Together, we can make the 2025 Catholic Ministries Annual Appeal a tremendous success. Please know that I am humbled by your kindness and grateful for your support. So, in advance, thank you for your generosity, and may you and your hearts be blessed by God's goodness.
Yes, thank you in advance. Last year, our goal for the CMAA was $189,000. We donated $377,000. We doubled our goal. And so 70% of our overage comes back to the parish. So we received a rebate check of $131,000 for the parish. The goal is based on a percentage of our Sunday collections. So since our Sunday collections have gone up, so has our goal. So our goal for 2025 is $208,000. And I know most of you have probably already received an envelope from the diocese. If you're registered at any parish in the Diocese of Joliet, you will have already received something, and maybe you've already sent it in. If you haven't received something, you might check with our parish office to make sure that you're registered in the parish. And in the coming weeks, we'll put envelopes out here in the pews for you to fill out if you didn't receive something from the diocese. I believe that money follows mission, and there's so many great things happening at the parish. I like to talk about money once a year, and then we continue on with the mission. So this week, let us reflect on those three things: this loving our enemies, to stop judging, and to be generous. Because in the measure that we want God to be generous with us, if we give that away, it'll come pouring back to us. Thanks in advance.